Good morning, everybody. Are people inside the temple? Yes, it looks like. Yes, people are inside the temple. Good. Good morning. Good to see a lot of old and new friends. And so people are filtering in, but we ought to get started. Again, we have the live stream going on YouTube for people who might be watching that way. And good morning, our fellow co-hosts. Welcome. And so I want to begin today once more by just pointing out a few of the other materials, course materials and readings that are available to you in the Slack forum, which because of its multi-channeled nature might be difficult to figure out where all the materials are. But in the channel labeled recommended reading, just recommended reading, there are some translations of the actual textbooks which we use, which are the traditional textbooks that teach the debate format and the introductory logic. So one of them is called the Yongzin Dudra, which I will just do a screen share of for a moment so you can see what it looks like. The title of the actual document is Collected Topics 01 full text, something like that. Anyway, it starts with collected topics, but it looks like this. The title, it's got a very flowery title, The Magical Key to the Path of Reasoning. So it sounds kind of funny and flowery, but it actually, once you get into it and go through it, it starts to feel like, this really is a magical key to the path of reason. Can't think of a better way to describe it. So anyway, but this actually has, so all the sample debates, which we are now looking at, just a couple that are in the documents we're looking through and practicing with, those are loosely based on debates from this text, loosely based. But if you really want to get a fuller sense of how these debates flow, what they're like, and there are many more, they're in this text. So please do look at that. And there's another simply version of the same material, but used by a different monastery. So this one was what we use at Sarah J and a few of the other centers of learning. There's one here used at Drepung Gomong College. And so this has both the Tibetan and the English as well. So for some of you, that might be extremely helpful for those who are interested in the Tibetan language as well. And again, I just want to point out that those exist. Those are here for people. Okay. Good. So before we actually start with the content for today's session, why don't we check for questions? And okay, someone is saying that they don't see a channel or have access to a channel that's called recommended reading. Is that true of others as well? Is there anyone, maybe just raise your hand if that is true, and then we'll work that out. If you go into the Slack app and you don't see a recommended reading channel, that would be important to know. Oh, okay, well maybe that's one of the issues with the Slack, and without wasting much time dealing with that now, we'll we will deal with that. But it seems like for some reason some of the Slack channels are not accessible to some people. Okay, thank you for letting me know that. Okay, so we're learning. Okay, someone else, so at least everyone can see that, but just to, maybe that's just the issue. I had to update my channels in order to see it. So it was added later after the initial form was made. So it might be that there's, anyway, we'll deal with that and tell everyone how to update their channels in the proper way. Okay, so and then just any general questions about the content, about your experience when you're debating, any question that came up that you want to ask about? If not, Then we'll move into a discussion of pervasions.
Actually,
Yes.
maybe just while we're on the topic of the Slack channels, I figured it out, I think. So I think people weren't automatically added, so I can just demonstrate real quick like how this works, how you can add yourself basically to these channels, because that's basically what has to happen. So I'm on my Slack. There we go. Here's my Slack. So here you have all the channels. So if you go above, then there is a channel browser. So I click on channel browser, and then you can find the list of channels. And then for the background reading, you might not actually, or well, no, sorry, for the recommended reading, that's a channel that if you look at it yourself, you might not have joined it. So then you need to click a button here which says join, and then you'll be added to that channel. So just check out the channel browser and join any channels that you would like to join. Which also the course updates one is another one that like I can see there's only 14 members because you manually have to join those. So maybe also somebody, Stefan or someone, can add everyone manually, but for now this is how you do it.
Wonderful. So there is a channel browser, and all of the channels which you are not yet in, you'll see, and just join those. And I'm actually amazed at how well everyone is keeping up with the course, seeing that you haven't received any of the course updates. Good. So things must be pretty intuitive then. Very good. So let's begin then with today's content of pervasion and the joints of debate. So first things first, what the heck is a joint of debate, and why are we talking about those? Now, did people watch some of the videos, which I realize are not completed with illustrations and animations, but at least have the content there? So I hope I can just go on that basis of what was presented in those videos. So I'm hoping at least a few people had the chance to watch those, and hopefully all of you. So what we have here is a certain kind of framework for being able to analyze the relationships between different phenomena. Now, typically or traditionally, this is phrased in English as the possibilities or permutations of two phenomena. So we have basically four options. Let's just take an example and we'll just go with the basis of that. So we have these hierarchies of an ontology, for instance, of physical objects. We have form at the highest level of physical objects, physical phenomena. That covers all physical phenomena. Under that, we have two categories, external form and internal form. So if we were to want to compare external form and internal form, I'm sorry, that's one way we could do it. Let's just start with external form and form. If we want to compare external form and form, start there, then how do we go about doing that? In this system, and this is a sort of cognitive training tool that helps us to get more clear about how phenomena are relating to each other, we do it by looking for instances of phenomena which possess the quality of being both form and external form, and checking to see if there's any phenomena which are one but not the other, or the other but not the one, and then are neither. So we're sort of creating this array of different relationships connecting. Okay, so we have something like consciousness, mind, neither form nor external form. We have something like a ball, that's both form and external form. We have something like the internal eye sense faculties. that's something which is form but not external form, as because it's internal form. So what that means is we have certain objects that connect these two phenomena together or allow them to be distinguished. So we call these the joints of debate. I should say I call them the joints of debate. I know that this is not typical terminology. I'll just briefly say the reason for that terminology is, again, my wish to streamline the language as much as possible and practical. So saying possibilities just is a little chunkier coming out of the mouth, more or less. But also the actual Tibetan word here, mu, for those who are a little familiar with the Tibetan, actually more literally does mean something like a joint rather than a possibility. The very sort of direct meaning is sort of a boundary or border. So while metaphorically possibility and boundary do have a similarity metaphorically, really saying that something's like a border between two things, saying that it's a joint where two things meet together, actually kind of covers that meaning also. It's another fact, it's another aspect of the meaning of mu. So possibility does make sense, joint also makes sense. So um but also I think just the imagery of having, where the phenomena are connecting, I think that where joint helps to kind of conjure that type of mental image. Again, if you really are already used to using a different terminology, feel free to. Someone saying there's no audio. I believe that we all have audio, so if anyone else doesn't have audio, please raise your hand. Otherwise, or maybe please restart your browser maybe. Okay, thank you. So for other people, it's working. So, um, or if you can't figure it out, perhaps Stefan would be able to help you. But just try restarting the browser first. It's always one, or restarting your computer maybe. Okay, good. Now we have these different joints. So what are they? What are the options, right? So we looked at form and external form. And now, why don't we, to figure out the options, look to a document which also was in the channel 3 folder, channel 2 actually. I mean, the day 2 channel, sorry, the day 2 channel, because we intended to start covering this yesterday but didn't get to it. So this was and I'll do the screen share, the file called Review of Pervasions, which was created many years ago, 2006. It's got the copyright there by Emily Su and Tse-Ching Ling, which I believe is in Singapore, but I'm not actually 100% sure. And so if we do that screen share, and if you all open up that document, then we'll see this review of pervasions. Good. So we keep saying when we're debating, no pervasion, no pervasion, no pervasion. Well, what do we mean? The best way to figure out what a pervasion is to go through these joints and compare two phenomena in that way. Okay, so these are the options. There are 4 options. 4, and I'm not going to say 4 and only 4. There might be some tricky situations where you find there are things that don't fit in any of them. But well, how about if you find something like that, then you let me know and I'll give you a prize because you came up with a brilliant you were able to think of something that's a little bit obscure and not the average thing that you would tend to think about. I'll give you a hint though, it does have to do with thinking in terms of negations of things as opposed to just positing outright objects. Anyway, so these are generally the 4 that cover kind of any 2 phenomena that you wish to compare. They will be either. And the terminology we're using in the videos and in the documents that I'll be providing, that I'm creating, are a little different. Mutually inclusive equals equivalence. 3 possibilities equals 3 joints. 4 possibilities equals 4 joints. Mutually exclusive means contradictory. Okay? So they're just different, slightly different terminologies. So what does it mean? Well, we have Venn diagrams that really cover, they tell you what they mean just by looking, right? Do any of you can you kind of generally just figure it out by looking at the Venn diagrams? I think so. It's pretty clear, right? So just I'll give quick examples of each one of these, and then we'll go through this document, continue down through it. So equivalence, mutually inclusive phenomena. There's only one circle there with both A and B inside. Let's say A is form, B, that which is suitable as form. If something is A, that which is suitable as form, it is necessarily B, form. If something is B, form, it is necessarily A, that which is suitable as form. There exists nothing which is one but not the other. There are no forms which are not suitable as form. There are no things which are suitable as form that are not form. Thus, they are equivalent. Okay, thank you. Yes, so the terminology is written there for everyone, and that will be added to the list to the course materials. Just a sheet of terms. We'll get that. We'll get that for before the next days, before tomorrow. Okay. Mutually inclusive. Let's just go straight to mutually exclusive or contradictory. Those are the two simplest in a sense. So here it's simply A, B. There's no phenomena which is both. There's no common ground. What is an example like that? Let's just say the color white and the color red. There's nothing which is both the color white and the color red. If something is the color white, it's necessarily not the color red. If something is the color red, it is necessarily not the color white. They're contradictory. Being one contradicts being the other. It excludes being the other. They are mutually exclusive, contradictory. So now 3 possibilities would be, just like the image, the Venn diagram, there are things which are A but not B, yet if something is B, it is necessarily A. So this was the example of form and external form. There exists form which is not external form. There is a non-pervading joint, a non-pervading possibility. Yet, if something is external form, it is necessarily form. So this is why when you're debating and you say it follows that if something is a cloud color, the color of a cloud, it's necessarily a secondary color, you're asking for a pervasion. Is there a pervasion? If the answer responds why, then the questioner asks, give an example, posit something, which is this non-pervading joint, this possibility where something can be a cloud color of a cloud, without being a secondary color. You're saying there's no pervasion, so that would be like what they would be saying here is that, well, they haven't actually confirmed which of these which of these possibilities or joints it is, but they've said essentially it's not the case that we have the cloud color as B within the larger secondary color. We're saying that there is something which is a color of cloud but not a secondary color. And if you say posit an example, they can say take the subject, the color of a red cloud, color of a white cloud. Okay. So 4 possibilities would be something where you have, on the one hand, some things which are both, that's the section in the middle. You have what we call a common ground or a joint hub, a basis which possesses both qualities of A and B. And then you have things which are A but not B, and you have things which are B but not A. So here, if we take something like, a woman and a scientist, something like that, we have something which is both a woman and a scientist, for instance, America. We have things which are scientists but not women, for instance, Albert Einstein. We have things which are women. I know it's might feel odd to say things, but we're just talking about phenomena, right? We have things which are women that are not scientists, for instance, Vice President Kamala Harris. So there are those options. Okay, mutually exclusive, mutually inclusive, three possibilities, four possibilities, or contradictory, equivalent, three joints, four joints. Okay, we have a chat. Is that a question? No. Okay. Everyone joined the channels. Good. Thank you. I think Stefan figured that out to make everyone join all the channels. Thank you very much. I apologize for not checking on that earlier. Okay, so let's just keep going through, and there are other examples. Now, why don't actually I just ask? We'll just do it as a group exercise. And why don't we have this time one of the students come on up and we'll do, because what this document, it really just has more examples, right? But we can just do them in real time and see what people say. So one student who wants to volunteer, come up and we'll go through a few examples. And I again can show the document that we're working with our hierarchy in it, the collected topics with all the different types of external form. Okay, if someone wants to come to check it, or if not, then we'll just do it with us and you watch. Stefan, maybe if you want to just answer. I mean, everyone will you just kind of shout out the answer, but again, if we were really together, you could just shout out the answer. Uh, Here, it's going to be more difficult to do that. So, Stefan, okay, so let's take something like.
Before we get started, just a quick technical question. I received the question whether the live stream is online right now or not. Does it work for anybody else?
It says that it is according to the YouTube. Oh, maybe not. No, yeah, it says it's been going. Oh no, the live ticker, it just started. Oh, weird. Maybe.
Yeah, actually, I don't see it live right now when I go to the channel. So
Do you see anything in the backend whether it is recording?
It's recording, and according to the streaming software, it's streaming.
well, I think it says upcoming live streams for day 3, session 1, and that's streamed 22 hours ago. So maybe something was set wrong with the date.
Okay, it's streaming now. So I think what happened is, honestly, I just clicked on start stream before I gave it time to start the stream and left the browser tab, and then it didn't actually start it. I think that's all that happened, which is disappointing, and I apologize because I just assumed it would start even if I left the browser tab. It is working now though, right? On your end. Okay, technical issues bound to happen.
Yeah, we're live now.
Yeah,
Good.
okay.
Thank you. I guess we're all learning as we go, because for all of us, a lot of these things are new, Gather and YouTube and Slack. So
Yeah, that was just totally my fault because I'm the one doing this stream, and I clicked this time. The first day I didn't know to even click the button. This time I clicked it and left the browser tab, and it didn't actually start. Okay, sorry about that. Well, I don't know if anyone would be listening if you were trying to start 20 minutes ago. And anyway, okay, let's just.
well, apparently 7 are watching, so you know.
Okay, good. Okay then. So we're just going to go through certain things. And now one of the tricky kind of ways to use pervasions to test the pervasions, check them, is to use negations, to bring some negation into the objects that you're positing. So again, we're looking at two different objects, two different phenomena. And then we're going to just check and see how many pervasions they have, how many possibilities, how many joints. So let's just start here. Okay, Stefan and Marika, if you just want to answer, and I'll just posit them. Okay, how many joints are there between a square shape and a round shape? Or to say it in the formal way, it follows that you can posit the difference in terms of joints, in terms of 3 joints, 4 joints, contradiction or equivalence between the two, A, square shape, and B, round shape.
I would say they're probably mutually exclusive.
Mutually exclusive. So it follows that they're mutually exclusive. Right, it follows they're mutually exclusive. They're mutually exclusive because
they're mutually exclusive because there are no things that are both a square shape and a round shape.
yes, there are no things which are both a square shape and a round shape. Another way to say that is there is no common ground, there is no common locus, there is no joint hub. Common ground is, again, maybe the most sort of a good way to say that. There is no common ground. Okay, so how about between the color of sunlight and primary color? Can you posit the difference in the difference of A, primary color, and B, the color of sunlight in terms of 3 joints, 4 joints, and contradiction and equivalence?
Now I'm actually wondering whether the color of sunlight is a primary color yellow. Let's say it's yellow. What do you think, Stefan? 3 possibilities? Shall we go for that?
I would go for 3 possibilities.
3 possibilities. So now if you're saying 3 possibilities, you have to say which one is which pervades which.
The primary colors pervade the sunlight.
So you just say if something is, you say in a statement of pervasion, right? If something is a.
If something is the color of sunlight, is necessarily a primary color.
Okay, if something is the color of sunlight, it's necessarily a primary color.
Right.
Okay, so then take the subject. So the color of sunlight, though, that's actually a division of the secondary colors, right?
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, we're a great example here.
Well, again, we haven't gone through the material and like taught that separately, right? So that's part of the challenge here, is that we don't really have time to like have just a class on this ontology, this outline here. But so there must be some colors which are sunlight, colors of sunlight, which are also secondary colors, right? There must be some, as that's indicated.
Well, I guess we go back to the example of the cloud and the color cloud, right? So just like the color of sunlight might not actually be sunlight.
Yeah, so how many, so there can be sunlight
the color of the light of the sun might not actually be sunlight. That's what I mean, but maybe that goes a bit too far.
Or it doesn't have to be yellow. That's right. The color of sunlight. Let's just say, so what kinds of color might sunlight be? We could have maybe like at dusk or dawn, we could have maybe orange sunlight, maybe sort of kind of gold. Well, yellow and golden are kind of the same, but we could maybe have orange sunlight. Red sunlight. Yeah, red and yellow are primary colors. So I guess sunlight, which is not a primary color, might be orange sunlight, the color of orange sunlight, right? So we probably end up having then 4 joints, right? 4 possibilities. We have things which are primary colors, but not the color of sunlight, right? The color of, for instance,
probably.
What would be an example?
Blue probably would not be a color of sunlight.
Just the color blue. Okay. And then the color of sunlight, which is not a primary color.
Yeah.
What would that be?
Yeah.
the color of
So
red
that would
sunlight.
be this
Or
orange,
the color orange.
which would be then under which might be actually the colors listed here as sunlight.
Yeah. And then we would have something which is both.
So that's yellow and red. We have maybe even two things that are both.
Okay. And then we have something which is neither. That's when we have four joints, what are the four if we count them? The thing which is A but not B, B but not A, both A and B, neither A nor B.
Yeah, and so that might be the smell of cheese.
The smell of cheese. Take the subject, the smell of cheese. It follows it is not the color of sunlight. Right. It is not sunlight color. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So that's going through something with four. Okay. Now we should probably spend some time breaking out into groups. And I'm thinking that when we break out into groups, maybe we can spend some time simply discussing, because people are doing that anyway, and that's a good thing. We want to have time to kind of process what the material is about and think about it and go through it, and to do that simply just discussing in an ordinary, without the actual structure of the debate, that could be very helpful. So I was thinking we can spend 10 minutes or so just discussing, and then 15 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes debating. So we kind of break it up, and that way you have some time where you're really just focused on trying to keep the structure, and some time where you're just like, okay, so what are all these divisions and definitions really about? Can there be something like yesterday in our debate? Maybe it came up in the other groups as well, but in the Eastern time zone, the EST time zone, we had people positing or suggesting, holding the position that something can be both a form source and an odor source and a taste source, something which is all of them at once. So that can be something you can kind of discuss and talk about. Is that really what's meant here? Does that make sense? And again, going with the just so with the sort of traditional way of thinking about these is that they are all contradictory or mutually exclusive. So all five of these branches or categories of external form would be, there wouldn't be something which is both or all five or any two of them even. So if you take something like, one example that came up was salt water. So it was being described as being accepted to be a taste source and tangible object source because it's water, but it's also salty. But so here the trick is that we have to find a way to kind of use some reason that convinces you that it's one and not the other. Because again, the taste source really is equivalent with taste itself. Tangible object source is equivalent with a tactile sensation. So the tactile object is actually the feeling when you put your hand on something. It's not referring to, well, I should say, let's leave that for you guys to debate with. So, but that's generally they're mutually exclusive, accepted to be mutually exclusive from each other, contradictory. So why don't we take some time to just discuss the material, discuss the pervasions, and give some other examples where you just go through what we have here and compare, for instance, articulate sound and sound source, and try and find things which are sound source but not articulate sound, and then giving examples that are not on the sheet, finding your own examples.
Yeah, so I was wondering, and would it be helpful to just, before we go into the actual debating, I'm wondering whether it's possible to have a little like template, like how do you ask the question? So the first question typically is, well, can you posit the relationship between X and Y in terms of equivalence, contradiction, 3 joints and 4 joints. Okay, so that's question number 1. Then you get some answer, and then depending on the answer, you have to tick off all the possibilities, right? So that's the structure of the debate. So if they say it's contradictory, so then you have to explain why they're contradictory. If they're mutually exclusive, I guess maybe you have to well, then the challenger is probably going to try to find something that's one but not the other. So you know, I think a bit of a mental map of how this debate works might be necessary before we're debating, and maybe we can even on the fly sort of come up with something and share with you in 10 minutes or so in the Slack channel. I don't know what's while you're debating and working out your just by speaking it in human language, in normal language.
Yeah, why don't we speak it in normal language, and also with all the material that we've been going through and all the kind of doubts that have come up. Now is your time to discuss those and just discuss them, right? So get into not just pairs, but groups of, say, 5 or 4 or 5 people, and then just kind of discuss, okay, are you getting what it means to say no pervasion? Are you getting what it means to say the reason's not true or prove it? Let's give an example. Make a syllogism. Take the subject sound, it follows that. Take the subject the sound of a car motor, it follows that it's articulate sound. Why? It follows that it's inarticulate sound. Why? It follows that it's inarticulate because this or that reason. And then when you say no pervasion, what does that mean? And just discuss it out, and then try and, I mean, I almost feel like we're still, just we want to get the debate format down, even though we need to cover this material because it's so important. At the same time, we need to get the debate format down. So maybe just start discussing it and then think about, okay, what are objects which are both, sound caused by elements conjoined with consciousness and articulate, inarticulate, and then see how many you can find like that. Is this clear? Like we're saying, and we can make we wanted to have people kind of work through it. The videos that were provided give some illustration of it, but yeah, we should probably have more like a script, probably, right? So people can just see it and read it off the same way. Okay, so is everyone ready to go and do some just discuss what your doubts are, what's confusing to you, and that way we'll be able to kind of have a nice kind of group, people who are experienced with debate will be able to help those who don't have any experience yet. So let's just break up for now 10 minutes to do that kind of discussion, groups of 4 or 5 people. Okay, good. I'll call you back in 10 minutes. Okay, group, so the 10 minutes is up. So let's meet back in the temple and we can again continue clarifying how these possibilities, these joints work. Okay, thank you.
Slack is also good, but just to see that this is there already and they can access it if they have time.
Yeah, no, definitely. I will. Your computer.
Okay, so many of us are back, all of us. Okay, a couple more people I think are filtering in, maybe one more group. Good. So, I think that people are naturally wanting to just discuss and hear from others how they're understanding the material. So I hope that having that opportunity and just sort of being able to talk through it in ordinary language, in colloquial language, can also be helpful. So I want to be able to have us do a little bit of a combination, or I should say, we should have some segmented time just for that, and then other time where we really try and hold more a disciplined, uh, structured debate where we just use the language itself. So now
Yeah.
we actually do. Go ahead.
So I remembered when I really started to debate, while the structure of the debate is quite a challenge to learn initially, it's also a really wonderful tool because it really forces you to discipline your thinking and get more clear and very systematically check out like what do I really believe. So I'd say just hold on and it's worth it.
That's right, and it's worth it, and it's also something that it has its own value, and you start to see that when you really try and hold the line of that terminology and that structure, you can see how it becomes valuable. Naturally, we're going to sometimes just want to say, hey, but what do you mean? And just use ordinary speech. That's fine. Okay, so we do now have, thank you to Marika for creating an amazing template that is a document that's now in the channel 3 for the day 3 channel. Sorry, the day 3 channel in the Slack forum is there now already. So this is exactly what we were just discussing, but written out in a document that gives you a template where you can insert any two phenomena and then check to see if they have 3 joints, 4 joints, equivalence, or contradiction. Just like this. So are you doing the screen share now? Yes. So everyone can see that, right? You can open this document and you can also download it. And I would say please go and do that now. So here we have pervasions, right? A template. Can you posit the relationship between A, form, and B, external form, in terms of equivalence, contradiction, 3 joints, and 4 joints? Then the defender says, I accept. The challenger will say, posit them. Right? So why don't we just do it using this template, and then we'll do it like yesterday where Marika and Stefan sort of do it with each other, and then if I need to, I can comment on it, and otherwise, if it's pretty clear, then just go through it. So why don't we choose phenomena from the list of from the forms, it could be internal or external form. So how about something like external form and internal form? Why don't we start there?
Okay, so we have to, Stefan and I have to do it with each other as an example, or?
Sure, yeah. We're having trouble getting volunteers from the students. So
Yeah, although please, anyone who
yeah,
is
if anyone wants to.
courageous or not courageous, just come up, like who wants to play, basically. Just consider it like that.
Okay, good. We have someone. Come on stage. So why don't I just do it with you, Kabir? Or okay, we have. So you guys can just do it with each other, and then everyone else will listen. So Kabir and Damjit, if you want, you can use that example, internal form and external form. If you have something in mind already, you can use that.
Okay, and we use the new template, right? And try to with this external form and internal form. Okay, okay. I'm opening the document.
So should I ask, or would you like to ask?
As you wish. You can ask, and I will be the defender.
Okay. So how can you posit the relationship between internal form and external form?
But just give me 1 second. I need to open the document to see how exactly. Okay, can you put it please, can you repeat?
Can you posit the relationship between internal form and external form in terms of equivalence, contradiction, 3 joints and 4 joints?
I accept.
Posit them.
Okay. Mutually exclusive.
Okay. Mutually exclusive means contradiction. So if mutually exclusive, can you posit something that is external form and not internal form?
Yes. Oh, wait. Let me check. It should be. I should be able to, but now doubts come to my mind. Okay. Take the. Do I have to say take the subject? No, right? Just let me see. Okay. First, I have to say I accept again, right? No, sorry.
I don't know. Sure.
Sorry.
You could posit it directly or say I accept. The long way, you would say I accept and then posit it. And then the short way, just posit it directly. It sort of depends. Yeah.
Okay, then I accept, and then internal form, so a color, right? And external form, the tongue sense power.
Sorry, did you say tongue sense power?
Yes, or body sense power. Body sense power.
Body sense power. Okay, so take color. It follows. It is an instance of internal form.
Why?
Because you just posited it as an instance of internal form.
Venerable, maybe you just switched it up.
Sorry, maybe
Yeah.
I misunderstood.
You just switched them up, I think.
Sorry.
So.
I think maybe you meant to say the body or the tongue sense power is internal form and the color is external form. But I thought I heard you say it the other way around. Maybe I misunderstood. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry. My intention was to say that external is, for example, a color, and internal, the tongue sense power or the body sense power. Sorry.
Okay, fine. So I accept. So should I try and continue to debate even though I accept the position?
Well,
Would you like me to do that?
What you could do is try to think of something which is both of them. That's if you want to challenge someone who's accepting two things to be contradictory, then
So
you
I need
can
to try and find a
challenge them.
common locus of internal form and external form.
Finding a common locus of internal form and external form, and what might be some example that you might actually be that.
So all right, let me give it a shot. So take Stefan. It follows he is an instance of external form.
I accept.
Okay, take Stefan. It follows he's an example of internal form.
Why?
Take Stefan. It follows he's an example of internal form because he has a mind.
Because it has a mind. Oh,
Because
well,
he has
let me think.
Sorry, I'm just making this up, so please forgive me if I'm.
No, please. I know how to do nothing, so I just.
So all you need to do
to...
is just think of which answer you want to give, either no pervasion or prove it, or reasons not established. It seems like you're used to that terminology.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Then prove it. Yes, prove it.
So that's denying that he has a mind, right? If you say that.
No.
So take Stefan, it follows he does not have a mind.
No. I don't want to deny this. He has a mind. Sorry.
So the other option.
I don't know.
So no pervasion would be the other option. You can say no pervasion.
Yeah, it's true. There's no pervasion.
Okay.
There's
so
no pervasion.
What no pervasion? What is a no pervasion?
From this, right? Then 3 joints. But
So when
no,
he's
I'm sorry.
asking you what is the pervasion, what he's saying is just to repeat or explicitly state what is it that you've denied here. He just gave a reason that
so-
Stefan has a mind, and you're saying, well, there's no pervasion. So what if you were now to make a statement of pervasion? If someone has a mind, yeah, okay.
Okay, so if someone has a mind, it's necessarily, no, sorry. If someone is a person, it necessarily has a mind, but if someone has a mind, it's not necessarily a person.
No, I think it's internal form. So I think again, I could be completely wrong, but I think what you're saying is take a mind. It just because someone has a mind does not mean it is an instance of internal form. Maybe is that what you're trying to posit?
The thing is that I'm not getting how you relate the internal form with the example you put, a person and a mind. I don't get how you relate this. So I'm lost.
So I'm trying to find an instance of something that is both internal form and external form. And so I've posited Stefan as an example. Clearly, you've accepted that he has an external form. So now I'm trying to posit that external form and internal form are not mutually exclusive by positing Stefan. So actually what you need to say is that they're neither, and he's a non-associated compositional factor. If I can give you it's maybe a way to reach there. So it's
So the challenger is giving the answer. So why don't we
I'm telling you
stop
what you
the
need to do.
example debate there, and I'll give my deep gratitude for both of you for giving a really excellent example of how this counting the joints, this checking possibilities goes. And that's exactly how it goes, right? You posit the challenger starts asking, okay, take a look at these two things. What's their relationship? External form, internal form. The defender has some position. They know, they believe, yes, they're contradictory. There's nothing which is both. Then the challenger says, I think I can find something. Take the subject Stefan. That's Stefan, a person, a human being. Isn't he both external form and internal form? And then you go and you start to use your reasoning to prove that it's true and see how well the defender can hold up their original thesis that Stefan is not both of them, not both internal form and external form. And just like that, let's go ahead.
First, I'm kind of glad that I wasn't asked to prove that I have a mind, but you two did a great job there. Just wanted to give the possibility, the chance to ask a question, because there is a question right now. So please go ahead.
So can I ask the question?
Yeah, please do.
Thank you. So, because this is important, so I'm just following the script, right? So the categories inside the internal form are just 5. So what he said is not inside this. So why is correct?
That's not correct. No. He's debating. So this is the key. The key thing is that the challenger doesn't have to say something that's true. Right?
Okay.
They're trying to overturn your position. Yeah.
Thank you. That's why I got lost. But then I feel like I need to prove that what he said is wrong using the definitions, maybe.
Right. So you would just hold your ground and keep denying. And if he says that maybe he would say it's internal form because it is suitable, or he is suitable as form and included within the continuum of a sentient being. That would be the reason to prove that he is internal form. And you would then just continue to deny that reason, prove it. And then he would have to use another reason that, well, he's included within the continuum of a sentient being because he is a sentient being. And he's suitable as form because he has a body, something like that. And you would have to say no
Okay.
pervasion, because that actually is true. He has a body, he is a sentient being. So you would say something like no pervasion. So yeah, you have to just see what his reason is, but he doesn't have to be saying true statements.
Okay, thank you so much. So
Yeah.
that's why I thought I said I'm not following. So thank you so
Very,
much.
very good though.
Now
And
it's clear.
Yeah, and I would say that those are the best examples. Like, if you're not following, I'm sure there's going to be other people that are not following. Like, if you already understand everything, then we don't have a useful example. So, and also I found that it's quite confusing, I think, for us in the West. We think, well, in debate, one person is correct and the other person is wrong, and I'm going to convince the other person of my statement. But that's not what this is about. This is just about whether somebody takes a consistent position. Whether that's right or wrong is kind of irrelevant as far as I understand. I might be wrong, but yeah, this is my understanding so far.
And one of the signs, I'll use the word again in a colloquial sense, one of the signs that this practice of Nalanda debate really is about cultivating a certain skill, cognitive and analytical skills, more than about actually defending certain positions and proving them, is the fact that after people graduate from the study program in the Tibetan academies, the Geshe program it's called, they no longer practice debating. They occasionally will do so for certain kind of special occasions, or if there's a special debate that's organized. But in general, it's not like they go around with all of their friends and constantly debate all the other things. They continue to study, of course, but the practice of debate actually becomes not so much a central feature of their lives. And part of the reason is because that's what they use as a tool for learning material, for learning and teaching one another. So this is, you could think of it as the challenger is you're teaching each other. The challenger, by giving these kind of possible examples that may contradict what the defender has said, like Venerable Derme, now she can go back and say, oh, I have some doubt now. I never thought of that possibility before. I never thought maybe there is something that could be both internal form and external form, and you really caused me to question it. That's like your teacher now, right? He's causing you to gain more wisdom, to gain more understanding. Good. And I do want to just mention that this idea of pervasion, if it's A, it's necessarily B. If something is form, it's necessarily matter. If something is color, it's necessarily external form. These pervasions are in some sense at the heart of Nalanda tradition logic and debate. And the reason for that is because it's really getting at the connections, the relationships that phenomena have with each other. And the way that we can, I should say, the underlying theoretical assumption, or I should say understanding, that take it as an assumption and do challenge it, think about it. But the underlying understanding is that for something to be a valid, reliable, flawless reason that can really prove some thesis, there has to be a relationship between the reason and the predicate. A relationship such that if it is the reason, it is necessarily the predicate. This is like entailment, logical necessity. There are only two types of those relationships: either a relationship of being one nature or a relationship of being cause and effect. So if there is a relationship of one nature, that means that these phenomena are sort of ontologically bound together, and in another sense, epistemologically bound together. That being, when you perceive color with your eyes, you're also necessarily perceiving external form. There is no color that doesn't also have the quality of being external form. They're bound together. So this is a kind of relationship that we're utilizing when we're engaging in reasoning in this way of thinking about reasoning. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay, now we have another question, two questions. One is just giving a good example and asking about which of the 5 types of external form it is, and one is, what is the role of making statements you know are not true? So, well, Marika, that was kind of what she was touching on, right? So, maybe you just kind of restate what you were saying, if you'd like to.
Yeah, well, I can maybe explain what I think it means, and then you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I would say it's kind of making a thought experiment. So you'd say, well, if this were true, what would that imply? So actually, this is also what we do at the fundamentals of statistics. Well, for those of you who are in experimental fields and use statistics on a daily basis. So when you're doing statistics, basically you're saying, well, if there were no difference, how unlikely would it be that we see a significant difference between having studied the material and not having studied the material, for example. So similarly here in debate, you say, well, we assume a particular position and then we see what follows from that. And is that consistent with other things we observe that we know to be true, or that we know to be true from authority or whatever? So it's like in that sense, like that's the purpose of sometimes maybe putting forward contradictory or statements that might be untrue.
Exactly. I have nothing to add. So, and just in the very broad way, just that it causes each of the participants in the debate to think about something new, to challenge themselves, to try and come up with a good reason. If it's obviously false, but you can't think of the reason why it's false, or you can't say the reason why it's false, then there's something that you can learn from it, right? That means now you have to think about, well, what's the reason for it to be false? Why do I know it's false? Well, it doesn't feel right. That's not a valid reason, right? So there you go. Okay, so we have another question, and this is actually an appropriate place to talk about this. So here is one of the areas, once again, so the question, I'll just read it aloud. Could you explain the difference between one nature, one entity, one, and one isolate? Okay, so this is new terminology for some people, old terminology for others. But let's just think about so before I go into the terminology, just saying this is one of those areas where it's difficult to untangle the ontology of Nalanda logic and Nalanda tradition philosophy in general from this format of debate and this way of thinking about using logic in a dialogue, in an oral debate. For instance, if we're taking two subjects and comparing them, and we have, say, the color red and the color of red fabric, the color of, a red cloth, red shirt. Are those, let me put it this way. So take the subject, the color of a red. Well, I'll just state it instead of trying to give an example in the debate format. They're something that may seem like they're almost the same thing. The color red, the color of red clothes, the color of red cloth. The color red, the color of red cloth. Are those the same thing or not? So what do you think? Anyone, just raise your hand. Are those the same thing? If you think yes, raise your hand. The color red and the color of red cloth. Okay, we have no hands. If you think they're different things, raise your hand. We have one hand. Okay. Some people think they're different things. Some people are not sure. Okay, good. We have the doubters. Okay, most people think they're different things. But good. So They are different things. So you want to make sure when you're debating that you hold that distinction in mind. And the basic difference is being one, now just to use the terminology in the question from Boris, being one and one isolate are equivalent. They mean the same thing. Being one nature and one entity are equivalent. They mean the same thing. So you can really just, out of those four terms, just pick the two and make a distinction between one nature and one. Okay, so we can do that. So now we've streamlined the question by just combining the two sets of equivalent terms into one set of terms. Now let's look at oneness first. Oneness is distinguished from difference. Any phenomena which exists, anything which exists, is necessarily either one or different. So take the subject, the color red, and the color of red cloth. It follows that they are either one or different. And hearing your shouts of "I accept," why, both. I'm sure some of you saying both. So some of you saying both one or the other, but if you accept, follows that they are one or different. Okay, so which are they? Follows that how many people believe that we just went through that, right? So some people thought they're one, but we would say they're different. Now, why are they different? They're different because they're phenomena which are distinct. Distinct in the sense that they are able to be thought of, that there is a different term that has the let's say there are different terms for each of them. Let's put it simply, and that implies that there is a different thought process or a different thought which is connected to each of those phenomena. So you can think of red, and you can think of the color of red cloth. You can think of the color red. You can think of the color of red cloth. And there are two different mental images that appear to your mind. So they're different phenomena. That's the simplest way of saying it. That's why even though red and red cloth, they actually have three possibilities or three joints, right? They're not even equivalent. So even things which are equivalent, for instance, form, and that which is suitable as form. Let me just ask you guys, how many think that those are the same thing? Or one? How many think that form and that which is suitable as form are one? Good. We have hands coming up. Right. So a lot of people do. And how many think they're different? Okay, we have a few hands coming up there, but not as many. So based on that explanation that I just gave about how things are equivalent, or sorry, how things are the same or one, that, or if that it depends on the ability to have a thought about it that's distinct from another thought about something else, or a term that expresses it that's distinct from the other term. So form, that phrase which expresses it, that word form, is that the same as the phrase that which is suitable as form, or is it different? So it's pretty clear, I think that's pretty obvious that they're different, right? So that means that the thoughts which engage with those, or the thought that has the contents form, and the thought that has the contents that which is suitable as form, are distinct. They're able to be conceptually isolated. Now this is where the term isolate comes in. Since they're able to be conceptually isolated, they are distinct phenomena. They are not the same thing. They have distinct isolates. That's the word we use, the philosophical term. Now what about form and form? Form is one with form. Form and form, there's no difference in the word that expresses them. There's no difference in the thought which engages that with the thought which has that as its contents. So here we just gone over the distinction between one and different. This is one isolate or different isolate. One and different. Now, what about one nature or different nature? So one nature means, like I was saying, so color and external form are different. You can think of external form without thinking of color. Something can be external form without being color. The words external form and the word color are distinct. They sound distinct. So why are they one nature? They're one nature because, so it's basically the distinction between one and one nature, or different and different natures, is a distinction between the conceptual thought or conceptual cognitive processes and perceptual processes, or the direct perception of the senses. So in the direct perception of the senses, when color is perceived by the eye sense consciousness, external form is also perceived together with it. They're not able to be distinguished by the eye itself, by the eye consciousness itself. They're only able to be distinguished by a conceptual cognitive process, which is related with the language, the fact that we have different terms for color and external form. So we see a color, we see the color red in front of us, we see the color brown in front of us, you see all the colors on the computer screen in front of you, and mentally you're able to go, okay, color is this thing, external form is that thing, but the eye consciousness itself isn't able to do that. So the sense consciousnesses, and this is true for any direct perception, whether it's a mental direct perception or a sense direct perception. That's getting more into psychology than we need to right now. But I think, Boris, you'll understand what I'm saying at that point. Oh gosh, so we're getting very close to our time, the end of this session. So I just want to ask if there are any more questions, and then allow for Stefan and Marika to say a few words. We do now have this amazing template that Marika very quickly but perfectly put together. It's exactly what we need. And then we'll also have more examples before the next session. We'll have a sheet with more examples of things which are equivalent, things which are contradictory, things which are 3 joints, things which are 4 joints. So any questions before we go? If not, we can just do a little more practice. Okay, we have...
Yeah, I think maybe also it's worth pointing out that I found it quite stimulating what was mentioned, I think, in the first video about these pervasions, about how we can really, I mean, it feels sometimes a bit silly to talk about the colors and forms and shapes and whatever, but, you know, can you think about the terms that we are using maybe in our work and our thinking, like what are the joints between mindfulness and positive mental qualities, or those kind of things, and then you can investigate, like, well, what kind of maybe hidden assumptions do I have about what these terms mean? So in this way you can really try maybe the next day or so to explore your own thinking and your own assumptions, and see whether you can make any discoveries of something that you didn't realize before about how you're thinking, or maybe how other people are thinking, and like, oh, that's actually quite an assumption that they're making there.
Right, and then even when it comes to these coarse material objects of our sort of everyday life, and the things we constantly interact with in an external way, it makes a lot of sense when you think about it, why this is the initial topic of discussion and study when you're learning to debate, because there are things which we see, feel, hear, taste, feel with our body, smell. There are things that we're engaging with all of our senses constantly, but we still have a question, like Archana sent a question, is a tree, take the subject a tree, follows it is both a visual form and a tangible object source, right? Both a form source or visible form source and visible form are equivalent. Follows it as both a form source and a tactile object source. Why? Well, look at it. a tree. It's a big, hard, woody thing. You can see it, no doubt, and you can touch it. It's rough, it's coarse, it's got roughness. That's one of the divisions of the tangible objects, right? So what it really does now is not just with your whatever else you're studying in terms of your academic study and in terms of your research if you're a research scientist, but just in terms of being an ordinary human being with our senses active, constantly engaging with all the objects of the world, external world, it helps to bring a certain kind of mindfulness. And not just the kind of mindfulness where you're what might be called like non-judgmental or naked awareness. Here it's judgmental mindfulness. We're talking about mindfulness which is actively investigating, okay, so what is the nature of this object that I'm seeing at this moment, that I'm feeling? Is there a difference between my hand touching it, the object that's felt by my hand, and the object seen by my eyes, right? So those are the kinds of things that this could be inspiring us to do, to really bring it into a mindfulness practice, sort of as you're engaging with the world at large, right? Okay, so actually with that comment, it kind of did take us to the end of this session here. So we only practiced for a little bit and had more, but we had a group practice all together, so that was very good. And so let's do that again next session, and we'll have a few more examples ready for people to start using. And we'll try and just keep working with some of this this material with the scripts.
Yeah, and also if you come up with any good examples yourself over the next 1.5 hours, please bring them along and put them in the chat when we get back. I think that might be fun to just use your own examples. And then maybe we can take one of these examples that you brought and we'll play it out on the stage before we go and practice in pairs or whatever, in groups.
Okay, great. So with that, we'll be back again in 90 minutes at the next session. Any last chance for questions? If you do have them, I'll check for hands. Okay, looks good. No questions yet. Okay. Okay, thank you, everybody.